Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the 5Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Martin115, joined as always by my lovely dance partner, Mr. Carmo.
How we doing, everybody? Thanks for coming back for another week.
Another week, and we are still on the road to Scrapper Mania. And as we said, every week from now to Scrapper, we're going to have somebody on for a chat, and we have a pretty big one already. So last week we had Mr. Sexy Waistcoat himself, Dennis Murphy, and this week the voice of OTT. If I butcher this now, I swear to God. The voice of Mr. OTT, Mr. Aonghus. Oh, it's not O'Malley. Is it? No.
No,
I'm
Aonghus.
so sorry.
That's all right. Aonghus McAnally.
McAnally. I keep saying it wrong. I don't know why. Even I even like watching things back and going, why do I keep saying O'Malley?
Because it's the O. Because I'm so so this is what gets really strange. So when I'm working, I'm Aonghus McAnally. So my real life I'm Aonghus McAnally. When I'm working, as in acting working, I'm Aonghus McAnally, which is my stage name because I couldn't be Aonghus McAnally because my dad's Aonghus McAnally and he was already in equity.
Yeah.
So in terms of the trade union, you can't, which is why Samuel L. Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson and all that kind of stuff. So I had to become Aonghus McAnally or Aonghus Jr. But then in pro wrestling, it's essentially this is Inception territory. Essentially, when OTT, it's Aonghus McAnally, the real person, who acts as Aonghus McAnally, playing a character called Aonghus McAnally. I think.
I'm a guy playing another guy dressed as another guy.
But like, yeah, but it's like, but that's the thing. So it's like it's a weird thing for me coming from a theater background that I'm in kind of within my soul. I'm like, no, whenever I'm up on stage, it's not me. It's me pretending to be someone else. So the kind of mad thing for me is I just kind of pretend to be a 7-year-old kid who really loves pro wrestling because guess what? I was the 7-year-old kid who really loved pro wrestling. So it's an easy part to play. But it's a weird thing. I still think of it like as an acting gig rather than a sports commentator gig. It's funny that way.
But I think it probably works better for you as well that way, because with this interview now, it's very different because with all the other guys, it's all like wrestling. With you, as you mentioned, you have a kind of art and movie type background, like you're in theater and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is very, very different. But what was your first love? Was it wrestling or was it theater?
Well, I mean, the two kind of go hand in hand for me. Yeah, it's a weird thing. So I grew up in, as I mentioned, I grew up in a kind of theatrical family. I'm third generation actor. So my granddad was Ray McAnally, movie star, and kind of at the Abbey Theatre. His wife was Ronnie Masterson. My granny also remember the Abbey Theatre. My dad is Aonghus McAnally, who's like an RTE broadcaster, game show host, radio presenter, all that stuff. My mum, an actress as well from the Abbey Theatre. My uncle is a TV director. My aunt was a TV director. I'm me. My brother's a big hotshot agent. So like it's the family business. So kind of always growing up, there was kind of never any question in my head about what I would do, what I would be. It was always me going to be an actor. But when I would have been aware of the old world of sports stuff and the Big Daddy and the Giant Haystacks and that kind of stuff. Wouldn't have been watching that religiously or anything. But certainly would have watched it occasionally. So I go back that far, kind of in the mid 80s, and then in the late 80s, early 90s, as Sky arrived, and the Hogan stuff and Macho Man and all that kind of stuff that arrived, and I became a massive fan then. But like weird, I was never like a massive Hogan fan or a Savage or whatever. Like for me, it was always more often than not heels. Actually, weirdly, huge Mr. Perfect fan, Jake the Snake, DiBiase. All those kind of mid-card heels, really. It was kind of a weird thing. I guess because they were more with the characters, if you like, characters in an acting sense, and they're the ones that I kind of gravitated towards. So that would have been the start of it, the early days for me. But then I kind of drifted away from it in my teenage years when you had to pay for Sky Sports and we didn't pay for Sky Sports. So I only came back to it then. I was in drama school. I was training to be an actor. Because I started working at 15, which is too young to start work. You shouldn't be working at 15. You should be kissing girls and drinking cans. Sorry, not drinking cans. You should be drinking cans off coke. But you're 18. And yeah, but kissing girls is okay. So, but I was working at 15. I started in kind of theatre and film then. And then after finishing up school, went to do a 3-year training course. And while I was doing this acting training here in Dublin, my brother gave me The Rock's autobiography, which of course is ghost written to hell. But for the first time, I was kind of I don't know why the thing hadn't really clicked in my head. But I'm going, wait a second, he's third generation and I'm third generation. So maybe I'm the Rock, and kind of just that idea of learning that what they did is much closer to acting and entertainment than it is to sports, really. I know it's kind of, I don't see it as actually as a 50-50 thing. I think it is closer to what I do than what, say shoot fighters do. And so I kind of went, oh, hang on, this is really, it kind of sparked my interest in it again, and I kind of got back into it. That would have been early 2000s. So in effect, I kind of missed a lot of the Attitude Era, which is kind of strange that, people talk about these, stunning HBK matches and stuff, and I just wasn't watching them at the time, which is kind of strange. But then, kind of rekindled my love for it. And then it goes on from there, but I won't keep answering questions you haven't asked.
You're grand. In my head, I just came like, imagine you just walking down like Dunn stores, get to the till. It's like, how much do you think it is? Oh, it doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it's weird to kind of miss such a big chunk of time. So like that idea of just kind of even NWO, DX and stuff like, I was not a fan at the time. So there's huge chunks of history that I only know from now, going back as a grown up and kind of rewatching all that stuff.
So at what point? Oh, sorry, Cameron, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask there. So when did you ever actually think of having, I suppose, becoming a wrestler or anything like that?
Short answer to that is no. Slightly longer answer is a bit more complicated. So I mentioned my other granddad, Ray McAnally, is 3-time BAFTA winner, best actor, the whole shooting match. And so people would argue that's the strand of DNA that came down. But my other granddad was Billy Morton of Morton Stadium in Santry, who was like a marathon runner and like champion, like the godfather of Irish athletics. And so I did not inherit the DNA and genes from that side of the family. So I am not the greatest athlete of all time. I loved GAA. I was a passionate Gaelic footballer. I was a dreadful Gaelic footballer, but really loved it. 1 year, I won Player of the Year for my team, having played an entire season at corner forward and not scored a single point. Now, I don't know if you know much about Gaelic football, but it is hard to go an entire season at corner forward and not contribute a single.
Very difficult.
So I like to refer to that award as the Asher God Love Him Award. So yeah, Player of the Year. So yeah, I know I was never a serious athlete, but as I was finishing up in drama school training here, a certain pair of men called Paul Tracy and Fergal Devitt set up the first training school in Ireland, really. And I was like the first guy to walk through the doors of that gym on day one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I trained briefly. It was in my final year of drama school. So we were just getting ready to graduate, and I did about 3 or 4 months of training at that stage. And I can only presume. See, this is the other thing, because like at the time you're just kind of there training away and whatever else. There was definitely one girl there at the time. So I can only presume that was in fact me training with Becky Lynch. And obviously Fergal was there, and that I remember my final session there, I came in and I just landed a big long gig at the Abbey and another movie after that, and I was going, look, I'm not going to be able to train, I can't risk injury, so I'll be gone for a while. And they went, yeah, that's no problem at all. It's just jump in the ring for one last match before you go. And Finn Balor beat the ever-living shit out of me for the next 10 or 15 minutes. I had his handprint on my chest for like a fortnight afterwards, and I wore that with a great sense of pride. And yeah, no, I loved it. But the whole thing of me training at the time was there was never any intention of being a worker. It was like, as I said, I was coming to the end of this 3 years of actor training, and we've been doing movement and dance and fight choreography and all kinds of physical training. And I went, look, this is a kind of a form of physical storytelling that I'm interested in, and I would love to have it like as an additional string to my bow, rather than, and then I'll make a serious tilt at the Intercontinental Championship. But it's, it was really useful. I mean, again, like within a couple of months of finishing up training there, I was doing just a clang on a big name drop here. I was doing a movie with Anne Hathaway, but like let's not keep going on about it. But we had this big long elaborate fight scene, And just to be able to go into that and know that I could handle myself in that kind of stuff was really useful. And we got on like a house on fire, and it was all great, but brilliantly, no, not brilliantly at all. This is actually quite a sad story. There was a time there was an issue with some of the film. This is back when you still shot on actual real film. That's how old I am, and it wasn't all digital. There was a fire over in one of the labs in the UK developing the film, and they lost some of the footage that we shot, so we had to do a reshoot. But I was such a major celebrity, I was already shooting on some other film. I don't know what I was doing, some kind of film or TV thing at the time. I was unavailable to come back and do it, so I had to reshoot the fight scene with a different guy who wasn't like, but they didn't get a stunt guy, they just got another actor, and so he wasn't trained up on any of the fight choreography, and she tagged him and broke his nose.
Oh.
So she was very glad to see me again. We're going to film some more stuff, and yeah, we got on the house before she came to see me. I was doing a show on the Abbey at the time. She came to see me, the show on the Abbey, and we hung out. And so yeah, she's a diamond. She's one of the good ones.
I will say as well, like, it is a nightmare when you've got to reshoot things. Like when I was in college, I did TV and movie, and we did like a short film, and we had to reshoot something. But one of the lads was already gone up to Dublin to take part. I can't remember what the name of the show was. It was an RTE show, and we were like, "Oh shit, what are we gonna do?" So we literally had to somehow. I thank God I didn't take part in this, because it was some other lads. Sent them to go onto like the cloud type thing where you can like save all your footage, piece every little piece that we ever had together, and go, okay, that's okay, we'll use that. That's how far we've come now, where we're like, okay, man, we could piece all this together.
Yeah, it can be a nightmare. But yeah, fun times. And mercifully, I didn't get my nose broken, so I'm going to take that as a big win.
Thankfully,
but so you've done all that. Obviously, you trained with Finn Balor, and then you went and obviously went into TV and stuff like that. Which, by the way, the family legacy. Oh my God, just
yeah, no pressure, right?
I would have been eaten alive. But how did you find yourself then with OTT?
I didn't want to go. My brother rang me and said, have you heard about this new wrestling promotion starting up? I said, yeah, I have. I've seen the ads, but they're really pushing the over 18s thing, which means it's going to be light tubes and cheese graters, which I have zero interest in, because that's not the art, man. The art is in pretending. So I've no interest in that. And he said, come on, we'll go. It'll be good crack. I said, I know, I don't want to go. And then, so I missed the first two shows. And then the very first scrapper, Dave Mastiff was booked, and I just finished watching British Boot Camp, which is like the Impact reality show they had in the UK. And I recognized Mastiff from that. I went, oh, okay, well, yeah, let's go. I'll go and check this out then. And rocked up to the infamous, world famous Tivoli Theatre, and had 3 cans for a tenner, had slices of pizza for £2, had the very best night of my life. Was adopted by fans there on the night who've now become very good friends, Al and Claire. And they were like, yeah, you're in the ward section now. I was like, what's the ward section? Don't worry, when Luther Ward comes out, you cheer. I was going, cool, I'm in, sign me up. Had the most phenomenal night of all time. And at the end of the show went, I need to find who's producing this. I need to find the boss. So someone pointed out Joe Cabray to me, and I went up to him and said, I don't care what it is. I need to co-produce. I need to co-promote. I need to do something with you. I really like what you're doing here. The product is exceptional. I think I've got a unique set of skills that I could bring to this. At least that's what I said in my head. But don't forget, this was 2 3 for tenner cans deep at this stage, and a couple of slices of pizza. So what actually came out was, dude, I like wrestling. You're in wrestling. And he just gave me the sure kid, find us on Facebook, which I kind of did. And kind of long story short-ish, within a very short space of time, they were running the Fringe that year. And the Fringe were willing to take a punt on them, but a little bit cagey that, would the alternative left artsy Fringe folk buy into the idea of bodybuilders in spandex and baby oil fighting. And they were just worried about it reaching the audience it deserved to reach. And so they approached me to come in as like special guest host for the night, because there would have been a degree of familiarity with me with the Fringe audience. And I think the idea was, oh, well, if Aonghus involved, then it must be more up our street than we think it is, or whatever. Yeah. And so I got asked to come in as kind of guest host for that night, which I did. But even by that stage, I was I have my own theatre company called Rise Productions, and we were making a show for the Dublin Theatre Festival that year, for immediately after the Fringe. And because I make the shows I make, the first half of that show, like the opening hour, is an hour-long fight scene. And I have an aversion to bad stage combat because I like pro wrestling and I know how it should look. And so when you get actors who don't have any kind of fight training, like sometimes it can be really rough. And I was like, oh no, if I'm doing this and we're going to go balls to the wall for it, I wanted to have as much safe contact as possible. I want this to feel like a real fight. Who could I possibly get to come in and choreograph? And I've worked with all the really great fight directors here in Dublin anyway, but I was like, no, I want a different thing. I don't want it to be stage combat. I want it to feel like something that the Irish theatre audience has never seen before. And so I hired Joe Cabray to come in and coordinate all the fights. And so I was working with Joe through that. And so at that point, I actually went back training in the old main stage gym, and trained fairly solidly at that stage then. Did much longer than I ever worked with Paul and with Fergal back in the day. And had Joe in to put those fights together, and he did an incredible job. Like, that was one of the main things that popped out from all the reviews, was like this feels like an MMA fight. Like, it's just I mean, again, it's that thing of simple stuff to us as wrestling fans because we see it kind of day in, day out. But there are points where you can make significant physical contact, but it's safe. You know, no one's going to get injured. It might sting or whatever, but it's safe. So that was great. But obviously, the actor I'd cast playing my brother in it for the big fight scene is now a pretty handy jiu-jitsu guy, actually, but at the time hadn't much fight experience, and he just kind of threw himself in wholeheartedly, which was brilliant. But there was a couple of nights I got a little bit snug on one or two of the shots, and it's one of those things where you kind of like just land and, you know, body shot. And at this stage I had done quite a bit of boxing training for a different show I had done, so obviously I'm still trying to mind everybody, but when I throw, if it lands, you're going to know about it. And obviously we're trying to pull punches a bit. If you're off by like an inch and a half, extra inch and a half into the guts, you're going to know about it. Just there's those moments on stage when you have to stay and you're going to go, with your eyes just go, I'm really sorry I landed that as heavy as I did. Go, it's okay, I'll give you a receipt later. So from there, that was me working with Joe and training with Joe for about a year, and then the VOD came out. The early days of the VOD came out, and it was raw enough footage with no commentary. And I was watching it back and going, "This is grand, but my God, you feel the lack of the commentary." And so I talked to a few of the guys behind the scenes, and they said, "Don't go and ask for permission. Just present it as a fait accompli." So I did. What I did was I ripped two fights. I think one might have been the Luther Ward Pete Dunne title change, and one was like a session match with loads of comedy. So just to go, look, here's the yin and the yang of OTT. Yeah. Here's what I can bring. And it was Don Marnell, who was also part of that ward section that I met on that first night. We'd become very good mates. We were sitting front row every show anyway. We knew the product inside out. We knew a bit about storytelling. Don had a history in radio and stand-up, and obviously I'm an actor and voiceover artist. You can go, well, look, you don't get much more perfect pairing than that for a pro wrestling commentary team. So we said, why don't we have a bash at this? And we did. I ripped those two fights. Me and Don got together in his apartment with my handy little Zoom recorder, and we put together basically an hour-long package. And I said to Joe, I said, look, no obligation, no expectations on this, but if you want it, that's there as a package for you. And mercifully, me and Don were making magic together, and he went, yeah, let's do it. Let's roll the dice. And from that good day to this, I've been the voice of OTT.
The most notable voice as well, you know, like obviously there's been not many changes, but like a change nowadays. But the one thing is you've always been there. Like, you know, you're the one that knows, you know, the people that are always at the events. You'll always see the like Rob. Everyone knows Rob is always at the events, you know. But like when you're at those events, like, is there a sense of pride when you see all these people coming back, you know, to hear you say, you know, the famous lines of the place is here, the time is now, it's OTT, because you're getting to see the rise of Irish wrestling firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first Scrapper show was like the third or fourth show in. So like, there's only a handful of shows I've missed over the entire arc of OTT, if you like. And it has been incredible to see it go from a handful of hundreds in the Tivoli to selling out the Tivoli, to going over selling out the Tivoli, and then us having to dial it back. Like that Father Ted night, we pushed it to kind of to what the demand was, and fair play to Cabray, man. You think, look, I take a bullet for Joe. The smarts that he had at the time was he could have been making more money. He could have put 100 more people into every single show, because we're selling out in minutes all the time at Tivoli. And he said no, he cut back capacity by about 100 tickets in those early days, to ensure that the experience for the fans was quality, that it meant enough. And you go like, I always really value advice you get from someone that costs them money, or a decision like that that's costing someone money, but it's for the good of the product, it's for the good of the team, it's for the good of the experience for the fans. It's like, there's a dude who's always putting fans first, and I've huge respect for the guy. But yeah, so I mean that kind of stuff was incredible. I remember Cabray coming to me saying, what do you think about the stadium? And me going, okay, I was at a TNA show there a little while ago. They did X. We're regularly doing, selling out 550 pretty quick. If you got the right name, could you get 1,100, 1,150, 1,200 maybe? And he goes, I think I'm going to pull the trigger on it. And because obviously Joe has run massive international shows all across Europe back in the Celtic Tiger boom days. So the idea of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 seaters is not strange to me, and he knew he had the ambition and the capacity to pull it off. And I was going, like, if you put 1,200 into the stadium, it'll feel pretty full and be a great atmosphere. And I think he sold 1,200 in the first day or day and a half or something. It was like crazy stuff. And to be out there that first night live on Flow Slam, knowing that it's not quite live, but you're live via satellite direct to the world. It was a big moment for Irish wrestling, and just to stand there center stage in the middle of the ring and soak it up, 2,200 fans who really felt part of it. The whole thing about WrestleMania 3, and was there 105,000 there or whatever it was, and so many people buy into that because they want to be part of something special. And it really felt that night for everyone in the house that we were part of something special, that it was this golden era of independent wrestling globally, of European wrestling specifically, and of Irish wrestling really in particular, that we were getting this opportunity to announce ourselves to the world and go, this is what we do. And it felt for everyone there, for the 2,200 and I guess the other 100 of us in the team or whatever, it felt like a really special night and a big opportunity to say, this is what we're doing. And obviously it worked, because in a very short space of time, you did have the Meltzers of the world, come back saying, like, this is, there's 5-star matches happening here. This is, in Sean Ryan, this is the best video production anywhere on the planet. And the idea that this tiny little, upstart company from Dublin was having that much influence globally was really kind of, it's like quite a privilege to be part of it, actually, quite an honor to be part of it,
And it's crazy how, as I said this earlier on, and I hate that I say this, I'm so green with it. I started watching, I knew of OTT, obviously the Finn Balor documentary came out on OTT, not OTT, on RTE before he went to WWE. Then there was the Balor Documentary Network, again, OTT featured on it when he made a surprise return. I knew of it, but I just thought it's this small little indie thing. It's not going to be that good. So I just kind of put a pass to it. And then it was Carbo one day that took me to the School of Irish Wrestling. And oh my God, you just realize how good it is. We had Matthew Bullet Smith on. He was the exact same. Think it's a small Irish. I would love to grab every Irish person that's a wrestling fan and just go, look at this. It's just as good, if not better, than what you're watching.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing because what I still see, I get people come up to me at the events, and sometimes you see stuff online. Some people, if you share stuff that you still get people going, oh, this is my first show, or I only started coming to shows 2 months ago, or whatever. And I'm going, it seems weird to me that you could have been a hardcore wrestling fan in Ireland over that kind of crazy time and not have known what we were up to, what we're doing. But I guess it happened, and it's still happening. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome those new fans in, kind of going, yeah, it's awesome. Congratulations, you're welcome aboard. Let's buckle in and have the crack, because that's how I feel about it. The the idea that I get to be at these world-class shows in the best seats in the house, like it's phenomenal. Like, and you know, technically it's doing it for a living is amazing. Just getting to share it, it's fantastic.
And you can kind of see it now as well with growing so much, because obviously you're pushing into now the Wolverhampton market. How has it been even traveling over there and just getting that kind of crowd as well? Which obviously gathers a lot of the Dublin crowd as well, or the OTT originals, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fascinating thing about OTT that has always kind of been really heartwarming for me. The idea that there is a hardcore brand loyalty there, that they know, and I think it is. I think what it comes back to is that thing from Joe of that he's always trying to look after the fans and make sure they get like the ideal experience. That it's never about pulling a fast one. It's never about going, oh, can we do a little bait and switch in this, or try and, you know, get a few more quid out here. I think he's quite fair with people, and you get that brand loyalty. The one night that it really struck me was the first night we ran Limerick. There was a queue out the door at the merch table midway through the show, not buying merch from any specific wrestler, but buying OTT branded merch, OTT hats, OTT t-shirts. I've gone, wow, they're really bought in to the product itself, as opposed to I love the session model, or I love, you know, whoever. And that it could, to elicit that kind of brand loyalty so kind of instantaneously is a really powerful thing. But we know what it is. Like I know a huge part of the success of OTT. Is that Joe looks after the boys incredibly well when they come over, but like the likes of when you bring in a Chris Hero and you treat them as well, and the fans react as well as they do and are as respectful as they are and kind of appreciative of what they're getting and having a Chris Hero there. He's gone back, and every locker room he's in, he's going, listen, boys, next on the list, yeah, like have Japan on your list, have Mexico on your list, have Canada, but like you need to have OTT at the top of your list of priorities. And a lot of the boys then did, and that's why you have, you know, Kyle O'Reilly and Keith Lee and, like, you know, so many of those heads coming over, again, playing in this small, dingy underground punk thing of the Tivoli, and just ripping the roof off the place. Like, I think back to those days, you know, Keith Lee and Matt Riddle and all this kind of stuff, like just incredible fights, speedball, kicking the shite out of it. I'm presuming I'm allowed to say shite on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like they were exceptional moments, and I think it's a bit now like 1916, like the, you know, the amount of people who claim to have been in the Tivoli in the early days is like, you know, more than we put in the stadium. They go, sure, kids, yeah, I guess you were. But it's, yeah, they were magic. It was its own thing. But I love actually how we've been able to grow it. Like you say, the move to Wolves, people buying in as strong as they have. You know, new home now in the complex, and that's kind of feeling like we're well bedded in there, and that we can shift from, you know, a smaller capacity in the complex up to those big 2,200 gigs in the stadium. But also the real one that's of interest for me is how central Belfast has become to kind of the OTT machine, if you like, because I think in the early days they might have felt up there that it was kind of more spot shows or whatever, and like an afterthought, and that wasn't the case. But I think as soon as they clocked that it was like, oh no, we're getting title changes up here, we're getting big names up here, like this is very much OTT canon, this is not like a throwaway show, you know, you've paid the flights over from the States, you may as well milk another night out of Keith Lee or whoever on the Sunday, whatever. Once they realized it wasn't that, the Belfast crowd, particularly coming out of lockdown when we were allowed run shows there but not allowed run shows down here, when they realized that they were getting, you know, absolutely A-grade product, the buy-in from the Belfast fans has been phenomenal. They're some of the best crowds we get to play in front of, and that's why, you know, that's why there's the loyalty there and the consistency. We keep going back and keep putting on those shows because they show up for us, and that's always been the case. The fans show up for us, and like I said, when you got the Chris Heroes of the world and everybody else going back, you know, the Pete Dunnes telling everybody that the fan response is that strong there, of course the guys and girls want to come work with us. It's brilliant.
No, it is great, and as you said, you know, like wrestlers do want to work there. Like now Homecoming now, obviously Eddie Kingston couldn't come for, you know, the passing of Jay, but the first three they put out was, no, I will be there. Like, I want to be there. That's a huge thing for Irish wrestling when people are going, yeah, I want to be there. And then like the Belfast crowd again, Homecoming, like a good chunk of the build now towards Scrappermania was all there, and again, big matches. But talking about Scrappermania now, we are going into it. You have been at so many Scrappermanias now. If you could, for someone like myself who hasn't, you know, seen that many Scrappermanias, I saw last one. If you could pinpoint one Scrappermania, go watch it.
Wow. Uh,
It's an on the spot thing.
no, it is on the spot. It is on the spot. So I'll give you an answer that you're not going to expect. Because I'm 95% sure this is on Scrapper 2. And it's a tag match between Rocky Mac and Pa Ward against Charlie Sterling and T-Bone, right? And so it's from Scrapper 2. I'm pretty sure it's 2016. It's the centenary of the Rising. It's Easter weekend of the centenary of the Rising, and so you got Rocky Mac, the most Irish fighter of all time, and Pa Ward, again like ludicrously Irish, against Charlie and T-Bone, who both come out in the full white England strip. And the reason I suggest you might watch it is because I was talking about it to Charlie only a couple of weeks ago. Because that match, from the time the bell rings to the time two wrestlers first make physical contact with each other, is 11 and a half minutes.
What?
11 and a half minutes of the most nuclear, patriotic, anti-British, xenophobic heat you have ever encountered in your life, with four workers in there who know well enough that if you already have the crowd that hot, don't hit a 450 to the outside through a table. There's no need. You already have the crowd up. And it's one of the things, again, it's why Charlie's such a great worker. I remember watching Charlie's debut. And again, this is me still in fan days, wasn't working the show, was just there sitting front row as a fan. And it was Charlie making his debut in OTT against the late, great Ryan Smile. And it was booked as a face-face match. And Charlie came out. Ryan was there, obviously over as all hell, and there was like just a half a glimmer of something from the crowd, and you could see the switch go in Charlie's eyes, and he just went, "I'm working this heel." And so they called the entire match on the fly then in the ring, and it's just a phenomenal fight between the two of them. And like it was a couple of years later before I ever said it to him. I was like, going, it did what I think happened that night. Is that, did you just go out and make it and call an audible basically in the ring and switch? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was going, man, that is just a testament to the caliber of worker that guy is. That you can, have an idea for something and then have that completely ripped up, call it on the fly, and still have an absolute banger of a match. And look, again, it helps if you're in there with someone of the talent of Ryan Smile. But yeah, Charlie's the businessman.
Oh, Charlie Sterling, like the match you just had there with O'Malley, one of the marks, Emmett again, he's more of the big kind of like wrestler guy. I said, you got to check out O'Malley Sterling. I said, that wasn't spot match, that wasn't excitement match, that was wrestling. Yeah. My favorite part hands down was just grappling, circling around all of us in the crowd and just not letting go. I was like, what are they doing?
Well, they're that O'Malley guy, I don't know if it's pixie dust. I don't know if it's sorcery, but his body doesn't behave like it obeys the laws of physics. I don't understand it. That flying high cross body off the ropes. I keep watching it back, both live and on the video. I think I watch it back on a loop. I can't find what leg he jumps off, because he doesn't. He just hits the rope and levitates like a fucking wizard. I don't understand that. I think he's probably the most pure, athletically gifted fighter we have ever had in an OTT ring. The guy is phenomenal. And also the other thing is, like, in terms of being a fighting champ, you're talking about it's 7 or 8 months of a run now, and he has been defending that belt left, right, and center. Like that's a guy who's been put through the mill. In terms of runs. I mean, I know kind of there's a debate over title reigns and stuff, given the lockdown years, whatever else, does something count? And if you've only had 2 title defenses, do you really have a 700-day run or whatever? But man, no one can quibble with O'Malley's run. Jesus Christ, that boy puts it on the line every single time. What a beast of a dude, and a gent as well, which is always helpful.
But it's not even like just to stay on topic of O'Malley, it's not even like it's just like him having a match. It's okay, it's a decent match. They're good matches. The Adam Maxted match, I think that's probably one of my favorite ones of it. The Charlie Sterling one just kind of tips with it.
Yeah.
But he's putting on banger after banger after banger,
Yeah, he's consistent. He's consistent as all hell. I've all the time in the world for that guy. I think he's really great. We're lucky. It was always going to be a rebuilding time coming back after the lockdown. In terms of how do you, for the entire industry, globally, like that idea of kind of picking back up and the rebuilding phase, kind of, you know, developing storylines and angles, and getting people invested in fighters was always going to take some time. But I think we've been steadily putting that work in, and you start to see it now in the Sammy D's, in the Jays, in the O'Maris, that kind of that new crop of people coming through. You know, you mentioned Bullet Smith earlier, that there's a crop of those guys that have now had time to establish who they are. So the audience knows what to expect and what they're going to bring. And like, again, it's that thing of like, you just need that time to invest in people. And I mean that from the crowd point of view, they need time to invest in people to know that either this is a guy I want to cheer, or this is a guy I want to see get his ass beat.
100%. Now, I'm gonna ask you a Discrepancy question now, because it'll lead to the next question. So obviously we have O'Mari versus Sammy D. Sammy finally getting his shot at the title. Who would you put your money on? We asked Dennis Murphy, put him on the spot as well. Who would you be putting your money on for that one?
Well, okay, so I've said that O'Mari's the most athletically gifted fighter we've ever had in an OTT ring. Most people in Irish wrestling will tell you that Sammy's brain is the best in Irish wrestling. So it's literally brains versus brawn in that situation. Sammy just gets it. Sammy gets it in ways that people who have had more the kind of global success only get it. This is why I love working with Big Damo. Damo is exceptionally talented at what he does. He has a phenomenal mind for the business, and just understands how to. It's funny. I always think about it I often think about pro wrestling in theater terms, and I often think about theater and pro wrestling terms, which is kind of strange. But that idea of where you bring an audience and how you bring the audience there, Damo's understanding of that is second to none. And Sammy's brain works in the same way. And it's the quote I always come back to is from Undertaker, saying, I can get the same response that some guys get for a 630 corkscrew off the top through a table, I can get by just raising my fist. And spoiler alert, if you want to have a career the length of the Undertaker's and make the kind of money the Undertaker does, it's a hell of a lot easier if you can get the pop by raising your fist than taking those kind of bumps. And my thing with the guys is I always want, like all of the lads and girls that we work with, I want them to make as much money as possible for as long as possible for as few bumps as possible. And so I want people to embrace, again, the art form of it. I love the storytelling of it, and that's Sammy D's mind works that way. So you've got the perfect ingredients for a great fight, and for a kind of a pick'em fight, because it's really hard to call. I think physically, absolutely, you give the edge to O'Mari. I think in terms of a calculating brain, you give it to Sammy, and you throw in the numbers game for Sammy as well. And I don't know, man. Like, can I envisage a world where Draw has literally every single title in OTT? Yeah, I can. I wouldn't like it, but I can see it happening. Wouldn't surprise me.
Mad, like, I just want to ask you there as well, just on Sammy D. So obviously you've done a lot of sit down interviews with a lot of the wrestlers. I suppose, where did that come about? How did that all start?
Well, part of this is it kind of simply it's a taste thing from Joe, in that he likes wrestling presented in a certain style, and it's not always, well, let me tell you something, brother. And there's a skill set that I bring to the table in terms of that kind of interview style. So for a long time, like every middle-aged white guy, I had my own podcast. But I was there first, man. Back in 2011, I had a theater podcast, which we did, and I got used to interviewing people. And so that it was a skill set that I brought to the table, and it was this idea of, what if we weren't cutting 30-second promos or 60-second promos? What if we had the chance for long form sit downs to tease stuff out in a bigger way? And I think, there's that wider argument about the social media now and attention spans, and if you don't get people in a TikTok 10-second thing, then you've lost them. And there's obviously there's an argument for that. but also there's still an audience there for, you know, a Lord of the Rings trilogy or a Avatar 3 hour thing or whatever, and you know, give people that deeper dive for the diehards. You know, we can cut them down to a 60-second package for people to get, you know, the bullet points across. But what is it to go deeper? And the stuff that we get out of some of those deeper ones is fantastic. Like there's a thread from what was kind of a throwaway question from me to Jordan Devlin back in the Walter days about Frank Bruno fighting Tyson, and Sean Ryan snapped on it, got it, and grabbed it, and it kind of became this whole thing. And you saw it evolve. That naturally, my interview style was influencing Devlin. Devlin's answers was influencing Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan's packages were then actually influencing Devlin's fight style and training camps, to the point where he did start training up his hands. And this whole mythology around the 4-punch combo and stuff became a real thing. And kind of within that cyclone of cross-pollination of us dealing with each other, it kind of, no one really knew who was leading who or who was driving the story or whatever. It was just getting there. And so those longer form sit-down ones, they just provide a different angle. Maybe it's a little bit more grown up than other wrestling promotions choose to do, and that's fine. So that's kind of where it came from. I love them. I like having a good sparring partner in there with me, because I think we can get good stuff out of it. Like it's a funny thing for me. Like, as I said, I'm Aonghus playing Aonghus, whatever the way that works out. Like that character that I play, I part of my style is I treat everything absolutely as legit as possible. Everything for me is a shoot. Mostly because most of the time it is. Like, when you see me get passionate about certain fighters, it's because I really do like them. And when you see me get excited for results, it's because I get smartened up to nothing. I know nothing about anything ever. Should have seen the pop I had for the Santino announcement the last day. No one tells me anything, right? So like that, like it's still real to me, guy. Like, that's me in a nutshell. So I love being in there, getting sparring partners, and I like when someone can step up and meet kind of the invitation from me to go, all right, here, look, you're smashing in the ring, like things are going well. And there's a chance to add this string to your bow. Let's come up and let's meet. And the guys and the girls who do come and kind of step up to the plate there, you see the difference it makes, just because it's a much more marketable package then. It's as I said, like, we want to buy, as fans, we want to buy in. We want to have someone to root for. We want to have someone to hate, and that's your opportunity. Whichever side of that coin you're going to be on, those sit downs are a real chance to establish exactly who you are.
And there's one specific one I wanted to actually talk to you about, and we brought it up with Terry himself. And if you want to see a really good one, the one with Terry Thatcher talking about his build up to his match with O'Mari. Oh my God, just once the switch goes in his head, what was it like sitting there in that moment with Terry as he's building towards this match?
It's fantastic. I was delighted, because I want everyone to leave me. I want them all to go and become Roman Reigns and like retire on a million. I want them to sleep in a double bed of 100-pound notes is what I want. And to see someone who has slogged it out for as long as Terry Thatcher has, who has been such a workhorse for OTT, a guy who's been such a pillar for things and a reliable head that you could always bank on to deliver whenever it was needed, and take some beatings along the way. How do you learn to fall off a 20-foot ladder? How do you learn to get the chest caved in on you every single show? Like, we all know what we're doing here, but like there's a real cost to some of that stuff. And that great line in pro wrestling of the best gimmicks, the best characters is just you turned up to 11. That's Terry Thatcher, man. That's who that dude is. Honest as the day is long, pure, passionate. You hear him talk about family. That's all real. There's no pro wrestling gimmick there. There's no work there. That's for real. That's who that man is. So he believes all of that 100%. And for me, like I'm acting over 25 years at this stage. I know when a scene partner's on fire, and I know when someone is telling the truth. And That's what I said. Like I said to you earlier, I like a nice sparring partner. I'd spar with Terry Thatcher all day, every day, verbally. I ain't getting in a ring with the man.
Oh, that could have been a great sit down. It would have been like it could have, as you said, like you're playing you. You could have just sat down and interviewed yourself. Got a green screen there and just off you go. Call out Terry Thatcher.
Well, let me tell you something, Terry Thatcher.
Carmo,
I was just going to ask you as well. Obviously, you've been doing the theatre work, and I believe you have your own production company in Rise Production. How has it been, I suppose, with working between that and OTT? Has it been tricky, kind of balancing the two, or?
Yeah, it has. Look, for a long time, I was able to. I went on a serious streak of not having to miss any OTT shows, which I was delighted about. But then, just the numbers, like eventually, the numbers just
catch up.
Yeah, they do, and so I've had to miss a couple kind of recently. Just working on bigger theatre projects. Like obviously, when it's Rise, it's fine because I'm the boss. I'm booking those tours. I'm in charge of the dates and the schedules, and I do my best to kind of to make sure that I'm as available for as much as is humanly possible. But I'm also an actor for hire, and sometimes the phone just rings and it's kind of going, can you go and do the show in the Abbey? Can you do this movie here? Can you do this TV thing here? And my kids like to eat every day, so I have to take those paychecks. They're selfish that way. So it's been tricky. Yeah, I was working on a big theatre piece before Christmas, which meant I missed those last couple of Christmas shows. My heart breaks because obviously I love the theatre. It's the first love for me, and it's the main bread and butter gig for me. Like that's what I do. It's how I pay the rent. So I'm always happy to be doing that, but I hate missing the shows because A, I love being part of them, but B, taking it back to 2015, I was a fan in the front row every single show. I don't like missing the shows because I don't like missing the shows, So it means a lot to me to be able to do them, and trying to work those schedules as much as possible. And look, as is always with these things, the card's subject to change. Sometimes our dates shift, sometimes availability changes, venue changes. And sometimes I get the phone call, and it's one of those things where if I have to be somewhere, I have to be somewhere. But I've been fortunate enough to be there for the vast majority of stuff. And in terms of my priorities, I weight the OTT work really, really heavily, because I love it. And because Joe and the company have been very good to me over the years, and I feel like I owe them that loyalty and that respect. And also, I value the work. What's really fascinating to me is, so primarily I work as an actor, but I'm also a director, and my understanding of how to direct a play has come on like in leaps and bounds. Like it's light years out of where it was because of the time I spent around pro wrestling. Because, and this might seem really strange, so you watch 17 stone men in spandex hit each other with chairs and you say that makes you good at Shakespeare. It's like, yeah, I do actually. Because the thing of physical storytelling, like how do you tell that story? How do you craft stuff on stage? And it's a really simple example I tell people about. So obviously in a build up to a big title match, you want to keep the guys apart. Don't let them tear each other's throats out, because if you give them to them for free on a contender show, why are they going to pay to come and see it front row at the stadium? So you keep it apart, keep the tension going, dial it up. And eventually then, bang, explosion. Andre hits Hogan and we all have a great time. And so there was a show in the Gate Theatre. I wasn't working on this. I was just in the audience watching it one night. And it was a show explicitly about a man and a woman and whether they're going to sleep together or not. And sometimes in plays, there's a gentle subtext, and we're talking about something else, but that's really what's going on. Here, they were literally explicitly speaking about this. Like, it was very candid. And a bit like Charlie Sterling and Rocky Mac, for like the first 40 minutes of the show, they made no physical contact, right? And so everyone in the audience is just on edge because they're talking about sex the entire time, but not laying a hand on each other. And then eventually, again, like probably 40 minutes into the show, there's the first moment of physical contact. And the moment of physical contact is her just poking him in the shoulder. That's it. And it was the most erotically charged moment you could imagine, like much more so than taking off your clothes or a big smooch or whatever. And just that idea of what you can do with physical storytelling, what you can do with choreography. I steal all that from pro wrestling and put it into theatre. which is kind of, it entertains me, but sometimes you get actors looking at your person and going, sorry, it's like SummerSlam 90 what? Oh God. I thought this was Samuel Beckett. No, it is Samuel Beckett, but in many respects, have you heard of the barbershop window?
I guess I'll end it on this one. So obviously, and it's very, very obvious now, sold out show after sold out show. OTT is on a massive, massive rise. More people like myself are starting to get eyes on, especially Homecoming. There was a lot of people around us that was their first show. I was like, thank God. Where do you see OTT going in 2023, or where would you like by the end of 2023 OTT to be?
This is a tricky one because the nature of the live entertainment scene in Dublin specifically, and Ireland generally, is really tough at the moment. Like I'm still seeing theatre pieces get shut down for COVID and the cast and whatever else. So there's always that kind of thing to juggle. Look, it's easier with a pro wrestling promotion in terms that you can juggle up a card or whatever and make allowances for stuff than it is with theatre. So I'm less concerned in that kind of stuff for OTT, but there's also the issue of the venue crisis, and the complex is fantastic. It's a really solid venue for us, but I think if we get back firing on all cylinders, it's going to get too small quickly, and I don't know what the alternative is to that, because it's not just finding any performance space. You got to find a space that works on all four sides, that has a ceiling height where guys can hit a 450 off the top rope, that has a license to serve drink, that has sufficient dressing room area for a team of 30, 35, 40 fighters maybe, that can handle the production stuff, the lights, the sound, the cameras. All like so they're tricky venues to find to make sense for us at the moment. Complex is perfect, and it's the most central venue we've had, so it's great, and I hope we have a long and happy run there. But in terms of looking ahead to the future, it's tricky. I'd like to see it back cemented in 3 or 4 nights a year in the stadium, with those electric crowds that made it so special pre-lockdown. I'd like to establish the complex as one of the hottest go-to nights. And I think interesting, like you said, the idea of bringing in those new fans. What I love is from that first night at the Fringe, when a whole lot of theatre folk and kind of arts world people came down who had never been to a wrestling show before, never mind an OTT show, and they bought in, and they're still there now. I was chatting to them in the second row at the last complex show. So I think once we get people in the door, we can hang on to them, because I think once you get it, one of the great things that for my money that Joe gets about pro wrestling is that it's a 3-ring circus. It's not just ultra hardcore, death match stuff. It's not just a comedy match. It's not just flippy luchador stuff. It's the combination of all of that. And if you don't like the frantic triple threat to begin, you'll enjoy the big, massive, burly guys in the tag, or you'll like the excitement of the flippy guys here, or you'll like the determination of this solo guy who's on a run, or you'll be amazed and terrified by a Raven Creed, or you'll be having a sesh with Martina, or whatever. There is something there for everyone. Whatever your personal tastes are. I kind of sometimes refer to it as, if you go to like a posh restaurant and they give like a 7-course tasting menu. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not mad on this fish, but I know there's gonna be something else brilliant coming along. So like you're gonna get a full, like the full sweep, the full arc of the night that you get as that night out. It's a cracking night's entertainment, and that's why I'm keen to keep getting those new eyes on it. I want to get the wrestling fans out there who haven't come to OTT yet, but I'm almost as keen to get people who aren't even necessarily wrestling fans to just kind of go, what is this mad night out? Because like when people ask me, how would you describe pro wrestling and OTT in particular? And I said, like, it's kind of like a cross between an MMA fight and like a Rubber Bandits stand-up comedy thing, and like kind of the fabulousness of like Panty Bliss mixed in with acrobatic Cirque du Soleil stuff. And they got all in one show. I was like, yeah, kind of all in one show. And when we get them there, once we get them in, we capture them. The maddest thing, that first Fringe show, they completely sold out the Spiegel tent. And as someone who's worked at the Fringe for an awful long time, it's no small feat. They completely sold out the Spiegel tent. They added more seating and sold that all out. And literally 5 minutes before my OTT debut at the Fringe show that year, they came backstage into my dressing room and said, Aonghus, stand up. And they sold the seat from under my arse. So when we can get access to those new audiences, they come, they buy into it and bring them in. And I think that's a great benefit for everybody. You want that cross-pollination. You want it to be a broad church, if you like. You want it to be a big sweep. And that's why I love it. Like, I love it, you're up in Belfast and an 8-year-old comes up and goes, oh, can we get a picture taken? And their mom's there going, oh, he loves this, or this is our favorite thing, or whatever. And like take that right the way up to, award-winning serious theater artists. I'm going, oh, okay, yeah, I'll see you. And anything and everything in between. Like I wanted to be there for everyone, because I think I genuinely believe there is something there for everyone. And like I love pro wrestling. I love the escapism of it. I love the fact that it's panto for grown-ups. Come, let your hair down, cheer the good guys, boo the bad guys. And have a bit of fun. Life's hard a lot of the time. That's, we've come through a rough couple of years. People deserve a bit of crack. People deserve to have fun. And I think there are very few nights out anywhere in the world as complete and as entertaining as a night at an OTT show.
That's what, you never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, that's also true. Sometimes a little bit too worryingly, but yeah, I think that's from what I know, we have some very exciting names lined up for some big ass shows on the way.
And we look forward to it. Aonghus, thank you so much for coming on here and having a chat with us. Obviously, the voice of OTT. Thank you so much for that. Now, I would be shot and I would be absolutely bombarded if I did not ask you, and you don't have to do it. Would you do an OTT intro with a 5-mark twist?
Oh yeah, let's give you something along those lines. Okay. For the biggest show anywhere in Ireland, with all the greatest pro wrestling inside information, the time is now, the place is here. My friends, this is the 5Marks podcast.
Love it. I would have
Absolutely
shot and told you, Aonghus, why don't you ask him?
Do you want to know a worse one? So as I said, I do a lot of voiceover stuff, and I'm the Irish voice of Tom Satnavs. And for an awful long time, my friends used that as their main chat-up line for any English tourists who were in Ireland. And so invariably, every Saturday night at like 1:30 in the morning, I'd be asleep and I'd get a phone call from the boys going, Aonghus, there's a gang of English girls here. They've been driving around the burn for the last week. They've been listening to Sexy Sean, the Irish voice. Will you just go on the phone to them and say, in 80 meters, turn left? Boys, I can be your wingman at the best of times. It's 1:30. I'm asleep.
There's times I'll do things. This is not one of them. But Aonghus, thank you so much. We respect for your time now. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Is there anything you want to... anything you want to... Carmo, the words got out of my head now.
Anything to plug? In terms of my own stuff, no. riseproductions.ie, check us out. We've got stuff there, got a whole lot of audio content going back over the years. But no, just keep watching OTT. So I know the VOD, OTT on demand. For my money, it's the best value in pro wrestling anywhere. We're going to keep bringing you top quality content, and you can have a great time from the comfort of your own home.
Love it. Mr. Carmo, I love doing this to you. Would you like to do our lovely outro?
We will indeed. Aonghus, thank you so much again for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to just have a chat with you. But again, we are done for another week. Thank you for tuning in to the 5Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast. But for this week, we are officially ding, ding, done.
Woo! That's